Steglitz.
Say auf Wiedersehen to your Nazi boss.
My name is Couch Coop and I have just reviewed Atomfall, which is also from Rebellion. This is my look at Sniper Elite 5 on the PlayStation 5. Haven't you already reviewed this, Coop? I have, over on the PC. And if you've been following my content of late, you know that I've been looking at PS4 games on a PC that didn't get that PS5 upgrade. I cannot say that about this. SSD, impeccable looking video game. There's people on Google saying it's got 4 graphics settings. It hasn't got a single one. It definitely 100% runs at 60 frames per second. I had a little look at some DF videos. If this is 4K, then it may well be a little bit dynamic. But my point being, I'm very happy with the game and the way it looks. I couldn't say that about Need for Speed Heat or Rage 2. That's because they're on PS4, Coop. Upon looking for some homework for you guys, I was going for Where Eagles Dare. Absolutely cracking film and some massive names in it, and also noticed that Tarantino may have taken influence on bits of that, particularly with the undercover scenes. Ingrid Pitts in the film, she was a hottie. But because of my mush-like elderly brain, I googled Into the Eagle's Nest, and if you know about that, the whole Sniper Elite series is basically sequeled to that game. It was like a gauntlet top-down. It was its first in the genre, I'm pretty sure. Mein Leben! Alright, Wolfenstein 1, maybe. That brings me on to this week's actual homework. And I went kind of around the houses this one a little bit. As you all well know, we lost Val Kilmer last week, which got me thinking about Heat and Michael Mann, which then put me on to The Keep, which has got Gandalf in it, some really amazing named actors that went on to have incredible careers after the film. It's also got one trippy soundtrack by Tangerine Dream. I often put films on in the background. Well, I constantly have films on in the background, and whenever The Keep is on, I'm kind of like transfixed. It's a hell of a thing and well worth looking at.
That bunker's not going to be causing any problems for a while. But there's plenty more still standing.
I have recently reviewed Resistance, which is technically a sequel to this game, but it's not a numeric Sniper Elite, so it was kind of met with a little bit of disdain from the hardcore fans. It was a great game, not colossal and not a massive change in what we're looking at here, but it prompted me to make more of a fuss about 5, because I think it's really one of the strongest in the series, and I wanted to see it on that 9th gen system. What essentially is the Sniper Elite series? Well, it's a stealth game where you're kind of a saboteur and you are sniping people, blowing stuff up. You are not technically constantly facing the enemy. Being undetected is kind of the way forward with it. And that's what put me off when I first looked at this series. I was like, it's really technical, it's going to be really slow. No, it's tense, it's amazing. It even tries to recreate some of the greatest films in the genre and video games from that direction. These cutscenes are freaking horrendous though. I pretend that it's Blazkowicz from Wolfenstein. I know, I can make that jump because you barely see his face.
I'm bleeding out! Help!
You might have seen on the footage at the start there that I was invaded. It starts with default invasion on. You have to tell the machine that you don't want a random high-skilled player coming in at any given point within your level to ruin everything. Why would anyone volunteer for that? It's something that I will look into one day. I won't. But it's cool that it's there. I can imagine some people having a lot of fun with that, particularly on a troll level, just going out there and, yeah, as I say, ruining an amateur like mine's day. I've also got addicted to save skimming with the game's system, so you can play this 2 ways. You can sort of make do and run and hide every time you're detected and start like having to deal with a situation that you've created by a mistake. Or as soon as someone spots you and you get a red indicator, you hit that start button, you load up the last spot you were in and you try it again. And you try and do the whole level that way. I was 4.5 hours in the stage 1. Don't get me onto the Spy Academy. I reckon that was 3 days. It's also not exactly a perfect game. Some of the detection is a bit crazy. Rebellion do a very good job, and you might have spotted this with Atomfall or Resistance on their AI detection. Like, it's ridiculously good. But that bench, that was enough to not trigger that close quarters insta-kill, which could have been devastating for me. If he'd have spotted me, I would have had to reload another save. It also does tension very well. All the detection mechanics are connected to each other with the NPCs. So if one person gets slightly suspicious, the people around them are going to, and that has a ripple effect on that whole area you're in. That goes for full detection on the red, and even if it's just white, you can still have an almost instant spot occur if you walk around the corner like an idiot and not realize what's going on. There is a look through wall ability, which I was amazed at and didn't really abuse as much as I should have done when I played this over on Game Pass, but that one's pretty damn cool. But it is integrated with your binocular clicking, which can end in some right confusion. I think it's time for some Panzer 1000 action. That save skimming system is quite a blessing if you want to do some experimenting and sort of work out what could happen if you fired X at Z and sort of see all the things unfold. And if you're happy with the result, then you overwrite that save, but just be damn careful because it does have an auto save. So have that, what I call an anchor save, which is a manual override at the bottom of that list. No one understands what you're talking about, Coop. Its locations and levels, there's about 8 of them, really stood out for me against Resistance and some of the earlier games in the series. This one is the most epic and spectacular in my eyes, and going to some more of the favoured sort of Nazi scenarios that you have in your head when you think of the bigger name films or how that war unfolded, being in occupied France. You even go to Guernsey, the massive installations and factories. It's a pretty cool journey. Every single level is also massively stacked with sub-quests and valuables to find and information, trinkets. You guys know the deal. So going through it again and really trying to get 100% of the unlockables in a level is a huge challenge. It also does this thing where you get to a door and it's like, no, you need a special type of explosive to get this, and that will be where the objective is. So things start unfolding. You start having to backtrack and look for different pieces of equipment. Might be a crowbar. It's quite a rabbit hole, some of the levels. You see the objective and think, oh, that's really simple. Then you realize your target is locked inside a bunker with 16-foot steel walls.
Wie ist das passiert?
Wir haben einen Saboteur erfasst. Aber redet nicht.
Bringen Sie ihn her.
Most of the cool ideas in Resistance also were spawned by the earlier games, I feel, with the sound covering mechanic. What I mean by that is something will be happening in the level. On this one, it's a plane flying over all the time. It might be church bells, but you can time the shot of your weapon with the background noise and get away with a non-silenced shot. Now that brings me on to one of the coolest things about the weapon lineup in the game and the well rod, and how it features this amazing pistol as one of the most OP early weapons. The thing is devastating.
What we have here today is a special operations pistol developed in World War II. This is a literal clandestine assassination pistol.
And that sort of brings me on to the mantra of Rebellion themselves, particularly with the Sniper Elite games, and that is rigid historic accuracy. With all the equipment, locations, uniforms worn, languages spoken, it supports the immersion fantastically. And I love learning new things about a shoe bomb or a rat bomb, some piece of ordnance that I didn't know about that was genuinely within that conflict. his hat flying off top of his head like that. I never get bored of these scenes. I know they're very macabre, and once you've seen one, you've seen them all, but that's not the case, because if you hit someone through the back of the head and both their eyeballs pop out, and you know, there's some satisfaction in precision there. The well rod will give you a cutscene if you line that thing up properly, so it's not exclusive to just scoped weapons. When I was playing Resistance, I was like, oh wow, there is loads of vehicles and this place is super busy. Lots of Nazis around, and there's always a truck starting up or pulling around a corner, but this is exactly the same. There seems to be even more sidecars and armoured cars, full-blown tanks. There's a lot of fun to be had with placing explosives on the backs of those sorts of things. And they haven't held back on the Nazi insignia and the scenery and how these places were decorated by those lunatics. It does give you a terrifying feel of how much that occupation dominated. And that brings me back to the intro of the video and playing Into the Eagle's Nest and enjoying it as a piece of Second World War software, and being on the planet long enough to see a game like this and play this and hold the two up against each other. That's a gift. I consider myself a very lucky guy. And talking of lucky guys, isn't that Bill Murray? What I also have noticed, and this goes for the recent Sniper Elite games, is that you do kill key Nazis and you have to make your way over to them. That's one of the objectives of a level, but it's never normally the main one, and I'm always sidetracked by something else, some document or some secret thing that I've got to get. The last thing in my mind is sniping some Nazi general over from the other side of the map, and I do miss that a little bit. I think it's pushed a bit more towards the later levels with slightly higher ranking Nazis. There is a brilliant section where you have to infiltrate into a meeting, and there's about 8 of them in there, and I do also love the idea that it can give you a massive machine gun right on the extraction part of a mission, so you can throw that stealth right out of that window. It is actually surprisingly confident when things get very busy. You don't see a lot dropping, and before you click that options button and go to reload your save, you can enjoy, firing an automatic machine gun around. Every level gives you an SMG, but you shouldn't really be going to it. It should all be about that silenced pistol and rifle.
There he is, Matthias Ehrlich. Been playing both sides. Ehrlich's down. That intel with him. Keeps things nice and secure.
It's also really good with equipment ownership, giving you rewards dependent on how much you use something. And one of the other things that's not easy to spot first time round is that the benches are actual upgrade stations. They're not things that you visit to rejig things around. If you don't find one in the level, you do not get that upgrade module, so to speak, for that particular weapon. And I really enjoy slapping cool stuff on to everything to make it perform and look better, particularly the well rod. Which version would I prefer to play, seeing as I've also got this over on PC? I do like the PlayStation version's resolution. I can't go higher than 1080 with the old GTX 1660, but I'm disappointed in the lack of really stubborn haptic feedback. It would be so great to feel a pushback trigger-like action on those buttons. There's no bite, there's nothing. They really dropped the ball a lot with haptic. I'm super annoyed with it. Returnal is still the flagship, and that was the first game to ever have it full stop, I think. I'll throw GT7 in that mix. This is me trying to get the testicle shot for the intro, and that isn't as easy as it sounds. They've got to be facing you, you've got to do it down scope, otherwise it just doesn't register. And that brings me over to the conversation about different ammo types and how much exploration you've got with methods on what bullet you fire. You can select that prior to each actual firing out of a gun, so you can have up to 3 different sets of ammo. Some of them are non-lethal, some of them are a lot quieter than others. Remember, because of the genre, this game doesn't actually have any true silenced weapons. The well rod was just an extremely quiet gun. It wasn't a hand cannon with a separate suppressor applied to the barrel. It's time for some more Panzerfaust Lebensleiden. Those guest weapons are so well placed. They know exactly what they're doing with them. They always put something devastating right next to a tank, or give you a really awesome German rifle just sat up in the crow's nest somewhere, and you've got a perfect line of sight to an enemy with their backs to you. Came in from the rear as well, even more painful. This is available on PSN currently with Extra, and it's also on Game Pass, and I personally feel it's a really good vertical slice for the Sniper Elite series. You've kind of got it all in here. That studio have been super busy. I'd be very keen on feedback with Atomfall. I will link that in the description, and there is certain seeds of inspiration in that game from this, but it's a very different affair, and a welcome one at that. Do have one more bullet in the old well rod for that PS4 PC area, and of course it is Titanfall 2, and I was not prepared for that. So we've had Need for Speed Heat, not the film, we've had Shadow of War, we recently had Rage 2, and now we're going to have Titanfall 2. Now that campaign was white knuckle at 720 and 30 frames per second, whatever it is it runs on that base level 8th gen console. My name was of course Couch Coop, and I will say Auf Wiedersehen and see you down there.
Well, if this is it, old boy, I hope you don't mind if I go out speaking to kings.